Hey everyone, welcome back to Aux Fiends. It has been a long journey since we last met. Let's just get right into it.
Long
I
journey.
think the last episode came out in December of 2022. This is Rishabh, by the way. I'm sure you've already forgotten. I'm joined here by my podcast co-host Mateo. Mateo, say hello.
Hey, how's it going? Been a long time. I know. There's always
Mateo,
talks of monthly, bi-monthly, once a year. Can we even do that? I guess we cannot, Rishabh.
no, we cannot.
You have explaining to do. I don't know.
It's been 84 years. Mateo's 84. I'm 84. It's been a while. So without fiending too much, I mean, I don't know if we have a really good explanation. But to our avid listeners here who've been waiting for an episode, Mateo, but you tell me if there's a good explanation you can come up with.
I don't know because I don't have one. Life we get busy. That's all I can really say, But don't worry, we've still been listening to music, and we've been just as eager to get back into some Aux Fiends as you guys, you listeners. So I mean, Rishabh, have you missed it? Have you?
I have missed it. I've missed delivering these episodes to our millions and millions of loyal listeners who are listening to this podcast and have just been waiting for the next episode and been waiting for any sort of explanation, and that we never gave them. But I think the nice thing is, Mateo, we're here today. We're here now.
We are here today. We are here now. I know. I think we must have said it last time that we were gonna do like every maybe once a month or every twice a month, and we were gonna do like alternating from Expression Discovery to Aux Fiends.
Right.
We're starting anew. It's 2024. We're just back to Aux Fiends, back to our roots. It's been 2 years. Give us a break. We gotta find our footing again, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think, and to the millions of listeners who probably have forgotten what this podcast is, to fill you in a bit. So, me and Mateo started this podcast as a way to kind of start, listening to albums and just discovering new music and maybe revisiting some of our favorites. I think, Mateo, I speak for both of us, and we've said this on previous episodes, that we're not people who usually listen to one whole album in one sitting. So I think that was kind of the impetus behind this podcast. Would you agree?
Yeah. No, definitely. That was super. I've never been an album listener, really, even like an artist listener. So it's been a whole kind of new way of discovery to listen to music, and especially because it's the way the podcast works is we alternate with album choices, and this episode is my album choice. So it's been super cool to dive in, not just to my own possible interests in music, but into yours as well, and to see where we agree and we fiend.
Exactly.
So.
And I mean, I think it's been so long, and honestly, I was talking to you about this off the mic. I would say about how there were so many times I'd be listening to music and we'd be kind of missing our Aux Fiends format and having that forum to discuss these things. So it's good to be back after 2 years for sure. This is episode 11, believe it or not, of Aux Fiends. This is not episode 1, which is surprising because it feels like episode 1.
It really does. I can't believe, I mean, it's been 2 years since we recorded the last episode, which was episode 10, the Phosphorescent Blues.
Yep.
But I can't even remember when we recorded our first episode. We're 10 episodes past that, and we're still in the basics, it feels like. And I think it's important to say that we've kind of changed formats a little bit. Like, we started out with going track by track through the whole album. I'm almost certain, though I could be wrong, I'm sure our listeners will let us know in the comments, that last episode we decided to do a change where we didn't do just track by track, and we just went kind of through the songs that we want to talk about. But I think I think we'll decide to just go again track by track, jumping around.
As you can tell, we're way too lazy to actually go back to the old episode and see what we did. So we'll depend on our millions of loyal listeners to tell us exactly what we did. But yes, we're planning to go track by track for this episode.
Yeah. I think that leaves it on that for all the introductions and kind of housekeeping for this. Anything you want to add to that, Rishabh, before we get into the album?
I mean, the only thing is that I think one thing I'll say, Mateo, is that even though it's been literally 2 years since we did the last episode, you did introduce your choice of the album in the last episode. We did go back and listen to that part. So this is actually consistent with our format still. So we are on episode 11, believe it or not. And the album that Mateo said he would choose in episode 10 is the one that we're going to be discussing today. So I'm excited for you to intro it, Mateo.
Yeah, I guess without further ado, you guys already know if you clicked on this episode, but this is Diana Ross's Swept Away. It was, to get a little bit into the history, there ain't much to it, but it was released in 1984 on September 13th. It was Diana Ross's 15th studio album. By now in her career, she had already had success with the Supremes, and she had huge hit songs like I'm Coming Out. So I really do think it's safe to say that she had found her footing by now. And so I think this will lead to a very interesting discussion, because I think it was a definitely interesting listen that at least I had. And I think, Rob, let's get right into it with Missing You, the first track.
We can get into it. I was going to go one step back, Mateo, and I did listen to the end of episode 2 where you first introduced the album and you were talking about like what I was expecting and everything. Yeah. And for those of us who you don't know, I feel like me and you have, I don't want to say diverging musical tastes, but we have musical tastes that are unique to both of us, and sometimes we match, sometimes we don't. But I was listening back, and it was interesting that I said in December, whenever we recorded that episode, that I was surprised that you picked this. What were you thinking I would think about this album? I guess I want to hear from you.
Like what you were thinking about this album? I think it's important to say too that I guess I was surprised that you were surprised I picked this. I don't think Diana Ross is that crazy of a pick. I guess thinking back now to where I've shared music, not just on Aux Fiends with you and stuff, I guess it does seem a little surprising. So I guess I can see where you're coming from, but I don't know. I was definitely interested enough in her music, and that's why I had even picked it in the first place. And so that's also, I don't know. I mean, did you go more on why you were really surprised?
Yeah, what I was going to say is I first listened to the entire album, right? And then I went back and listened to the end of our episode 10 to see what I had initially said when you said the album name. And I was like, kind of like, after listening to the entire album, I couldn't, understand why I was surprised. I think in my view, or in my head, and I didn't know much about Diana Ross before going into this album listen here, but in my mind, I guess even then and before listening to this album, for me, for some reason I thought Diana Ross was more similar to like an R&B singer, like a Whitney Houston, or someone in that zone. But I think she's quite different from what I expected. And looking back, actually, or at least after looking into the album myself, I feel that it wasn't that big of a surprise that you picked this at all.
Gotcha. Okay. That definitely makes sense. I mean, she definitely is and has R&B, with her music styles, but it isn't just solely R&B, like pop.
Definitely.
I think definitely by now, I mean, this is mid 80s where she has her footing already, and I think she really is a pioneer of like that kind of 80s music. And so overall, I'm glad you explained the surprise, and now that you're maybe not so surprised. But I definitely think we'll have a lot to talk about though.
Yes,
for the entire album review at the end.
Agreed.
I had little surprises of myself.
Right.
Not to spoil anything, but yeah.
Okay. Let's see.
Yeah.
So you want me to start it off with Missing You?
Yeah. First track of the album, Missing You.
Yep. First track. Yeah. I let me tell you, the only thing I'd heard from Diana Ross up to this point in my life was from the Minions 2 soundtrack. If you heard that song with Tame Impala.
No, I had not. I'm not familiar with that movie. I've not seen it.
Yeah, and I honestly didn't even connect those dots until I kind of saw, like, okay, who Diana Ross is. And I apologize if there's any diehard Diana Ross fans that, who are like, you should have known about this person and she's an icon, because I kind of get it. Like, even when I start listening to this first track, right? I mean, it's such a wistful, immediately kind of infectious kind of sound that's just absolutely deeply rooted in the 80s. You got, you know, harmonies and this entire 80s synth disco influence, which I think I really see her as a disco artist at the end of the day. I mean, there's definitely inspirations from a lot of genres, right? But I think with Missing You, you kind of get immediately that sense that, yes, this is going to be a disco album. And Missing You, by the way, it's a really kind of wistful and kind of sad song. But I think one theme throughout this album, and I think probably throughout Diana Ross's career, from what I can tell, is there's this really upbeat, almost feel-good, heartwarming side to all of her music. And I think that becomes really evident even from the first track. So those kind of initial thoughts, but I'm curious to hear from you as well.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that kind of the wistfulness, and almost all of her songs. There are two that we will talk about later where I don't feel they are that upbeat, but definitely Missing You kind of has that wistfulness. Especially, I literally written in my notes like how this song I kind of broke it down. It was like a lot of her saying like oh what I can't sing it, but and then it like kind of hit this just like gold part where I think there's like instrumentals. I just absolutely loved. There was like a specific part after a lot of kind of the chorus, and then she kind of went into spoken word, which I wasn't a huge fan of, and then it was back to that kind of chorus. To me, the song really was kind of like a classic 80s, not like great, and not terrible, but it was just like, okay, this is the 80s. And I really did love that like halfway in part of the song. Yeah. And when I was like, okay, this is good. This is good. But overall, if you take the whole culmination of the song, to me, this is like mall 80s. Like this is it's kind of friendly music that will just be going on in the background. You know, it's not going to be, you know, scaring anyone away. It's not harming no one, and it's just kind of there, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's easy listening, but at the same time, and this is definitely true, less so of this track, but maybe of other tracks, where it is this easy listening 80s pop synth sound, right? But at the same time, there's seriously like a larger than life campiness and happiness to each of these tracks, which I think is mostly true for all of them. I think Missing You is probably the one that's maybe the more subdued of them, but you still get that sense that this is going to be like a larger than life 80s pop album. And I definitely am on board with that from the beginning, right? And I think that journey continues to evolve throughout the album, but definitely Missing You is a track that I would maybe revisit in this album for sure.
Okay, for sure. Yeah. Any more thoughts? I think that kind of wraps it up for Missing You for me. Yeah. Do you want to just go to the next track?
Yeah, I think we should go to the next track. Yep. Touch by Touch. You want to start?
Instantly, Touch by Touch. I don't know if you're familiar with the song, but it reminded me exactly of like Club Tropicana by Wham. It had that kind of vibes. And then I'm like, wait, are we on like a safari? Like, what's going on? Is this like Tarzan soundtrack? That's like what it sounded like. And then I'm like, okay. It like found its footing, and it's like, okay, this is like a shopping montage. Music.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's I don't know. To me, it honestly, it seemed like this song was supposed to be like the hit by like the producers and by Diana Ross. It like seems like this, the way this song is formulated, it seems like it was supposed to be a hit. And I don't know how like accurate and like tentative and like how telling Spotify's like, if you look at like how many listens a song is, but it kind of surprised me where this song was like the third least listened to song off Swept Away. So it kind of surprised me on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think. Go ahead. Yep.
I was just gonna say, because it's definitely like catchy and like the song's all there, though. Like I guess like the lyrics are kind of lacking. It just kind of caught me a little off guard. Like this seemed to be one of the lesser listened to songs when it really seemed like, okay, this felt like this is where they wanted the focus for the album. But I guess it just didn't really land with a lot of listeners, you know?
Yeah. Maybe it's just a Spotify thing. I don't know. Maybe it was big when it came out. But I think that happens often when, you have a producer and artist thinks this will be the big song, and it's obviously number 2 on the album. I mean, from a music ordering perspective, the second track should really be strong. I mean, I agree with you. It was like a tropical beat that they used throughout the entire thing. There was marimbas and synth, right? And there was that touch of hamminess, I think, 80s hamminess, and I think it's throughout the album.
Yeah.
And some places it's I kind of love it, and then some places it's kind of just like, okay, this is pretty camp. And I think this is one of the campier songs. It felt like mall music. And don't get me wrong, I think the production throughout almost all of these albums, throughout all of these tracks, I should say, is pretty dynamic. But Touch by Touch, yeah, it's all right. It's one of the campier ones for sure. It gets interesting at points, but definitely one of the more forgettable ones, I would say. For me, that's where that was. Yeah, and it's pretty long too, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, I think it's I guess this kind of goes over the whole album. Most of the songs are around 4 minutes, a little over 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Except for around 2 of them, which are a little shorter, and there's one that's like 5. So I guess most of this album is kind of long, so they're all like 4 minute long songs.
Yeah,
but
I guess it's not a bad track, but yeah.
It's not bad, but it's not
the highlight.
Super, yeah, it's definitely not the highlight. I guess I can kind of see now, after giving a little bit to like rest after listening, of why this isn't like the most popular song. But I do see the signs of that they were planning on it being
really big. Song. Yeah, I get what you mean. Yep.
Yeah. I'm kind of going on that maybe kind of genericness, if I read that right, from what you thought about to like Touch by Touch with the next track, Rescue Me. I don't know. I thought it was, I don't have many notes. It was kind of a vibe, but it was kind of just generic. Yeah, this was the actual shortest track, so big kind of contrast. It was like talking at like 2 minutes, almost 3. This song feels like another kind of producer plant where like it seems like it was meant for the radio.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of. Yeah. I actually felt like I'd heard this before when I first listened to it. Maybe I have. Maybe I haven't. Can't say.
Actually, I got a little thing on that. It's actually a cover of Fontel Bass. It was another song came out before.
Oh, okay.
It's a cover song.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So maybe.
Yeah, I think it has like an 80s pop R&B vibe. It also has I think you start seeing the traces of like the rock genre in here as well. I know, not to be like, when you've only listened to Daft Punk, everything is Daft Punk vibes, but I did get Daft Punk vibes.
Okay, whoa, Daft Punk vibes.
Yeah, I mean, they're both disco artists, I feel, or at least operating in that space. But I guess the main thing that I take away from this song, I don't remember a lot about it, except that, at least in my notes and everything, I do remember this being the first time you start seeing traces of the rock genre. From Diana Ross, at least in this album, you start hearing guitar solos. Yeah. I don't think that was so much the case in the previous 2 tracks. So I think this starts getting into that rock area a bit. Yeah, I think it's still more of a pop radio song, though, probably, if I remember it well. But that's where I land on Rescue Me. What else from you, Mateo?
Honestly, this I don't have much else to say about Rescue Me. This is a very kind of forgettable track to me. I think after kind of hearing the kind of not peak 80s, but like with like that super just classic 80s, mall 80s with Missing You, and then hearing the Touch by Touch, just because we do listen to it in order, and then hearing Rescue Me, which is kind of a little bit more of the same. It just felt, it's just okay. I don't remember it too well compared to the rest. Fair. It just kind of blends in. I
don't want to sound too harsh, at least from my end. I mean, these are good, easy listening songs. They're 80s-esque and they're pretty sonically interesting, I would say. I mean, the production value and the production style is pretty good. Are they super memorable so far? I would say of these 3 that we've discussed so far, Missing You is the most memorable for me. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. Let's go into the next few tracks and discuss those 2.
Gotcha.
So, Mateo, I really want you to start on the next one.
Rishabh, thank you, because I was going to say, please let me talk about It's Your Move. Dude, yes, I love it. This is Diana Ross
God.
to me. This is 80s peak. This is why I picked this album. I'll be honest. This is one of the few Diana Ross songs I actually did know. I can talk about it so much.
Rishabh, and why do you know this one, Mateo? Why do you know this one?
All in your head, dude. The reason I know it's because this song was sampled by Macintosh Plus.
There we go.
You know, it is a grandfather song of vaporwave.
Yes, definitely.
Specifically in Floral Shop, the album that came out in 2011. The song is Lisa Frank 420 / Modern Computing.
Oh my God!
All in your head.
This is such vaporwave nerd stuff right now.
It is. I love it, and that's I guess originally when I had mentioned this album, were you familiar with It's Your Move or like where it came from, or did it kind of click in your head when you listened to this song?
The first 5 seconds, because they play that little sound bite which is used in the vaporwave album, and I recognized it immediately. I didn't really trace it back to Macintosh Plus. Now it's coming together, but I was like, oh yeah, this is like an internet meme song.
Don't lay it on that. It's not just an internet meme song. It is the internet song.
Oh yeah, for sure. Like it's immediately recognizable. Like if you have spent any time on the internet, you'll know this little sound bite that comes up in It's Your Move. And honestly, not to get ahead, but this entire album is just, it's definitely a grandfather album, you could say, for this entire mall aesthetic, the vaporwave aesthetic, right? I mean, it's all there.
Definitely. I mean, to get back into just the pureness about the song, I feel like I could feel her vocals more. The instruments weren't overbearing. It was a really good balance of Diana's voice and just like everything all together. It's don't laugh, Rishabh, but to me, It's Your Move, her voice sounded, to me at least, like a slip and slide. It was pure just fun. Like just think of like a almost nauseating bright neon slip and slide, and you're going down, and that's how I feel while listening to this song. It's like
I literally kid you not, Mateo. I wrote what you wrote, but just in more boring terms. I just wrote it's a fun, playful song, and I really did enjoy how she sung this one. And it's definitely one of the more bright, and you really feel the campiness with this one in a really good way. Good way.
The guitar solo in this, it's heavenly.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm serious. I was all smiles. If it wasn't super obvious enough already, this was my favorite track. It's Your Move. Okay. Come on. This is why I know of this album. This is the song I've listened to. I've shown friends this song. I don't even just like it just because of the Macintosh Plus sampling. I just like the song as it is.
Yeah.
It's Your Move. It's all in your head. Come on. It just all works. It's good. It feels, because in this specific album too, I feel like Diana does kind of have a little songs that do mostly sound the same for a majority of them, but there are a couple that kind of deviate away in a bad way. But this one I feel like deviates in a good way, where it's kind of purely, really, you can kind of get a sense of her. And to me, this is purely all the good parts of the 80s. You know?
Yeah, it's a really bright 80s song, and I have to go back and kind of re-listen to it now that I sense her excitement. But I had only positive things for this one. It's a good one, I think. As from what I can remember from my listen, it was definitely one of the highlights of the album here.
Gotcha. And not to spoil it if it isn't, but Rishabh, is this not your favorite song off the album?
This is not my favorite song, in my opinion. Maybe this might change. My opinion might change later on, and I think you'll be surprised about my favorite song. I'll just say that.
Maybe I think maybe I could take a guess.
Okay.
But we can save that discussion from when we get to it. I mean, okay, but I don't want to rag too much more on about how much I just really love this song.
Yeah, this is your song on this album for sure.
This is my song on the album. Exactly why I picked it.
Yeah.
And it's Your Move. It's a classic. I will listen to it again and again, forever to be on any 80s playlist that I have. So
nice. And is this a song that's like popular with Diana Ross listeners, or is it just more like, did it just get that vaporwave bump, do you think? I mean, I really don't know. So
though I don't know for sure, it does make me maybe a little sad. I do think it's purely kind of comes
vaporwave
from
bump,
a vaporwave bump. I do think that, but I think it just even shows, and this is not a vaporwave episode, but I kind of shows that
it is now, Mateo.
It is now.
You spent 2 to 3 minutes just naming random vaporwave stuff. Like it's like now it's just a vaporwave show, I think.
I mean, come on. If I have to say it, I'll say it. Diana Ross, even though she doesn't make vaporwave, she is the vaporwave queen.
Oh yeah, definitely. That entire 80s mall aesthetic is like so evident in this album, and in a really good way, I have to say. Like it's nostalgic and really warm and bright. So I mean, I don't mind that at all.
Okay, and I do want to emphasize this too. Not to spoil anything too, because we're not at the album review.
Right.
This, I want to be clear, this is where almost all of my excitement is going. It's your move. And I'll leave it at that. At that.
Okay. Interesting.
But I think it's time we go to the next track. Swept Away.
That's a big one.
Okay,
that is like
jump in.
5 minutes and 23 seconds. And let me tell you, Mateo, this song, like, I mean, this is like, I don't know, for me, this is a Queen Diana Ross moment, okay? Because this song is like a wild, like epic power rock anthem in my mind. It's like this in my imagination, this is like a big campy Broadway number where you got people in like brightly colored jumpsuits doing a synchronized dance, you know? It's so epic and big and 80s. It's like an overblown 80s inflatable. That's the way I think about it. And it's this really epic, larger than life song that's obviously, you know, this is the namesake for the entire album. So obviously it's got to be big and intense, and it's super campy, very showy production. You know, it's Diana Ross just killing those vocals. You got like crazy guitar solos going on. It's full on 80s maximum, right? That's how I see this, and I like it for it a lot. It's really larger than life 80s in a really good way. But Mateo, you're laughing, so I'm scared now.
No, I'm laughing just because I'm thinking it's almost like the reverse of, I think it was what. One of the songs we talked about earlier, where like, you basically said the same thing in my notes, but you know, more interesting. Where I feel like that's the same with what I wrote. Where while you're saying campy, it's theater, everything's bright, and everyone's running around. To me, it's first thing I wrote. Cheese, it's maximum cheese.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Song. I mean, yeah, you're right. It's a self-titled song for the album.
This is like a Chuck E. Cheese. This is the Chuck E. Cheese of cheese songs.
Yeah. It had strong vocals, gnarly guitar. Yeah. I will say, I think personally, it might be it's too long for replayability, though, if I'm being honest. Maybe
kind of
radio edit of it, but for me, it's kind of too long for that. It doesn't have it all there. I don't know if you noticed it as well, but it was Daryl Hall from Hall & Oates actually gave some backing vocals. I don't know if you had recognized that, but as soon as I heard him, I was like, wait, that's freaking Hall. So I looked it up, and he was actually he co-wrote and co-produced this song as well.
Yeah,
I thought that was pretty interesting. You know?
Yeah. I feel like they put a lot of effort into this track. Obviously, the album is named after this track. It's the big track for me. It's like the main big track. It's sort of the main attraction of the entire album in terms of the fact that it's the most showy production, and it kind of encapsulates all the genres that Diana Ross is kind of working with in one big track. But yes, it's very cheesy and campy, but in a really great way. I think really enjoyable way. Again, I'm thinking 80s jumpsuits and a synchronized dance. So, you know, once you listen to the track, I think a lot of you might agree with me. I think so.
Yeah. Definitely.
And I want to take a hot take here, Mateo.
Well,
I want to know what a little bit of a hot take. And this is tradition on the Aux Fiends show here. If you're a first-time listener to our unofficial episode 1 that's happening right now, I want to say that there isn't a clear interlude in this album. So if I had to pick one, weirdly enough, not in the sense that this is a small song or like a throwaway kind of transition moment, but it comes dead center in the middle of the album, and it kind of is this main big thing. I want to say it's a type of interlude.
That's definitely a hot take, Rishabh, because I wouldn't agree. I wouldn't agree. I mean, yeah, it's in the middle of the album, but there is another song on here where I'm like, oh, okay, this is why it is. Because I do agree there isn't a specific, just like, okay, here's a throwaway. Not that all interludes are throwaways.
No.
But to me, it doesn't seem Swept Away. That just seems too weird of why Swept Away. It's literally what the album's called as well. Like it's a popular song. I don't see how this is really an interlude, because it seems kind of more of that 80s sameness of Diana Ross and all that. There isn't too much changing. It isn't
not
down tempo at all. And so I don't really see
Let me rephrase. I feel like it's a good intermission point for the entire album. You know, you kind of end off on this high note with Swept Away, and it's the perfect place if you're listening to this album, honestly, to take a pause and then listen to the rest. Because I feel like, and we'll get into it obviously in the next few tracks, I don't see the next few tracks as like interludes, because I don't think they're really transitioning or, you know, going to a new place sonically. I have maybe one other candidate for an interlude that comes later, but I'll save my thoughts for now.
Gotcha. Okay, I think we'll definitely discuss that.
Yeah,
I do think it's important to say this is technically the end of what would be the track side A, because it's kind of split up into 1 through 5, going from Missing You, Touch by Touch, Rescue Me, It's Your Move.
Yeah. See, there you go. That furthers my argument for at least intermission, if not interlude. Intermission for sure.
I can agree on the intermission aspect.
Okay.
And I'll get more into it actually in the next song if you don't have anything else to say for Swept Away. And because the next song would be Telephone, which is the one I thought personally was the interlude, because there isn't, again, and not to repeat ourselves, really an interlude on this album, but to me it really had a big tonal downshift sonically compared to the first half of this album. You know, to get into how it actually sounded to me, I don't know, it just seems moody. It was just definitely tonally different. If I'm being honest, I didn't really like Telephone. To me, this is bad 80s. The keyboard sounds that, you know, of the classic 80s really clashed, I feel like, with the vocals. It was kind of, she had like a dun 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 song, and really part of the music, it sounded really like Super Mario Bros. The only kind of interesting aspect of this song to me was the beginning with like the old, like I guess it'd be dial-up phone, and it had like that kind of dial turn noise, which to me really was reminiscent of the songs of today that you kind of see maybe on like SoundCloud rap, where they use there's like they use a non-instrument audio, and like for songs today it would be like using like a lighter flickering to kind of show how like moody or emotional maybe the song is, like they're trying to smoke or something, you know. And so I think that was really the only thing that kind of grabbed me for that song. I was like, oh, okay, they even did that back then, you know, throwing in some random noise that's not instruments or vocals. But it was definitely a downshift of this album, and where I'm like, okay, I don't super care for Telephone, you know.
Okay. Mateo, you ready for the hottest take of this entire Aux Fiends show now?
Oh my gosh. Go ahead.
Time to start fiending, Mateo. Time to start fiending, because for me, I think this is my favorite track on the album. I'm not even kidding.
Oh my gosh. Why?
Okay, so hear me out. I was genuinely kind of mixed between Swept Away and this one, okay? But I feel like Telephone is maybe, and you were kind of hinting at it in a weird way, not in a weird way, but in a way about how it was kind of similar to songs of today. So in my opinion, this song is kind of ahead of its time. You think about the warm, enveloping synth sounds they've got going. And this is definitely Diana Ross going in a separate direction. I mean, it's definitely, I would agree with you, a shift from Swept Away, right? Swept Away is your high energy finish, and Telephone is definitely moodier. And I think that's why it was one of my favorites, because it kind of broke away from the rest of the album and went to this almost like from a disco to R&B sound. You have slightly more colorful soundscapes happening. Love the phone sound effects in the beginning. I mean, not that, you don't have sound effects in other 80s albums and things like that, but the way the song came together, I think it was the most unique, which is why for me, I would say it's the highlight. It's probably the one that I would go back and listen to and revisit. It trust me, I totally get that it's kind of a hot take. That's why I prefaced that. It's the unexpected choice. But I have to hand it to Telephone. It sounds totally different from the rest of the album in a really good way for me. But I respect what you're saying. I get it.
Gotcha. And I do, I guess, respect what you're saying, but to me, this is bad 80s. It is definitely unique, and she's definitely doing something new. And that's also why I think it's the interlude, because you really see that in the next song afterwards, too. It's kind of these two songs that are definitely more of a downshift tonally. But I just don't care. I just don't think it worked for Telephone. I can get what you're saying, where she's, future thinking and it's definitely ahead of her time. But just because it is, doesn't mean it worked, I think.
I get what you're saying. Yeah, for me, it sounds almost like a moodier version of some 2000s R&B songs, in which I kind of liked the contrast somehow between this and Swept Away. And trust me, it was between Swept Away and this, I was kind of caught. And not to say It's Your Move was not in the running. It was up there, but for me, Swept Away defines what Diana Ross is, whereas Telephone kind of breaks away from her usual style. So for me, the pick is the one where she's kind of breaking the mold. That's my thinking.
Okay, I can respect that. I can respect that.
Nice, good. Slight mild fiending, but yeah.
mild fiending. Maybe it shows the 2-year break. Have we lost the Fiend? I don't know.
Maybe we have. I don't know.
We'll see.
I think we just need an album that's crazy enough to, get the fiending really going.
Well, we'll see when we get to the album review of this.
That's true.
Well, we shall see. Still a lot to discuss. We barely got halfway through, but onward to the 7th track.
Yeah.
Nobody Makes Me Crazy. Parentheses, like you do. Rishabh, what did you think of this song? Because I have definitely my own thoughts on it.
I think, in my opinion, this is, in parentheses, or not in parentheses, the worst track off the album. Yep. I mean, for me, it's just, look, I get it. It's got like this cool, hypnotic, it's kind of like a spooky Halloween song. It's kind of downbeat. Yep. And it's supposed to be Diana Ross kind of, I don't know, just being a little bit more campy and mysterious. But for me, it doesn't work. And it's not taking credit away from Diana Ross. I'm glad she, made a song that was, true to her diverging styles. But I really feel that Diana Ross really shines when she's making brighter music. And this attempt at being a little bit more moody, unlike Telephone, just did not work for me. And the song ends really suddenly, and I was not into it. I just thought it was not really well composed.
Honestly, Rishabh, I think maybe no more fiending. Maybe it's Aux Friends. Maybe. Okay. But I completely agree. This is, no parentheses, put in those exclamation points, the worst song on the album. Honestly, when I first listened to Telephone, there's some fiending. I thought that was going to be the worst song. Nobody Makes Me Crazy, like this song did. This song is definitely
for you.
Yeah. I think it's definitely the worst song. I see what she was doing. I agree on it was spooky. I see what she was doing. To me, it was scary at first with the the stuff she was throwing in, and then I'm like, "What is this?" She started heavy breathing. I'm like, nobody needs to hear that. Who's listening to this song? Like, for real, it felt like they were just throwing in '80s instruments because they were trying to fix the song in post. Like they didn't know what to kind of do. There's so many oohs and dahs and someone was pressing buttons, in the recording studio, and it was like her vocals seemed like she was trying to like charm a snake, if you get what I mean.
I mean, the song is
like hypnotic kind of.
Yeah, exactly. It's got a trance vibe to it, and the song's about like desperation, and so I get what she's doing, but musically, it wasn't interesting. That's the way I would put it. I didn't want to listen to it. I wanted it to end, which sounds very critical, but maybe that is kind of where I am with it. I just was like, this is a definite skip almost.
No, it's a full skip.
Yeah.
I think you don't need to listen to this song.
Definitely skippable, which I think is probably one of the harshest things we've ever said about a song on this show. But yeah, I'm glad we agreed on this one.
Yeah, I guess we do. Anything else to say about that?
No, I think we've sufficiently beaten it down at this point.
Sheesh. Well, the next track is All of You, weirdly featuring Diana Ross, because it's a duet with Julio Iglesias on this track. It was good. Honestly,
it's good. Yeah.
Whoa! Oh, I don't like.
I said yeah.
It's kind of like there's a little sass there, Rishabh.
I'm kind of like it was. I don't know. I have mixed feelings, but on the side of good. That's where I'll start. But I want to get your opinion first. I'm gonna shut up.
This might have been like my second favorite song off the album. Okay. I feel like everything was in conjunction here. Both the voices were in harmony as well as the instruments. Like the parts where I didn't like songs on this album, it all got changed in this. And maybe because it wasn't just the Diana Ross song, it's like I really felt like everything was in conjunction. And especially like the keyboard, where I feel like in parts and other songs where everything was clashing. Obviously, and like what we said, and Nobody Makes Me Crazy. But with All of You, it just like worked, and it, instead of taking away, it really added to like just the vocals, and it just amped it up because it had that like dun 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 like at the end of every kind of like hot spot in the lyrical lines. And I don't know, to me it's the way I visualize the song is I feel like it'd be on like an 80s movie end scene where it's like a wedding, and it's just like you hear a little bit of that, maybe the couple kisses in the movie, and it's roll credits, and then they just throw it in this song, and I don't know, I liked it. I thought this song definitely worked. I don't, maybe you know a little more about this. I feel like I've never really seen where it's the artist's song and it's her album, but she's the one featured on the song. Can you explain that to me at all? Do you get that? It seems weird that she's featured when it's a duet.
I think it happens occasionally. I think it happens less now, from what I understand. But I think if the song is good enough, from different artists where she was a feature, and I want to say, like, let me break it down this way. Like, first of all, I didn't think it was really a feature. I think she had a pretty big singing space throughout the entire song. It's basically a duet, and it's a really warm, romantic, like, feel-good duet, I think, like you were saying. My only complaint with this song, I would say, is, to me, I know what you're saying. It's definitely got those harmonies and everything. It's a little overproduced, which I think was a common thing anyway for 80s ballads. Like, they wanted to overproduce those songs a bit. Like, I would have enjoyed it a little bit more if they just let the vocals and the two singers, who I think are pretty good singers, right, in their own rights, just let their voices carry the song. I think they overproduced it, felt a little bit noisy. But yeah, overall, not a bad song. I would say mid-tier on this album, maybe a little on the higher end for sure. Not bad though. Yeah, I mostly agree with you. Yeah,
I guess. Yeah, I think the only really diverging part, I feel like this. I mean, I get what you're saying, where it's the overproduced, but I feel like it worked for me. Yeah, for this song, it worked. It worked where throwing in all the extra sounds and stuff. It really was an additive. And it didn't take anything away. There was no distractions in it, I think. And I wouldn't go crazy and say I'm listening to this song all the time,
Yeah, sure.
But I would give it a listen. If you really want to peek into the '80s and kind of be singers.
Yeah. No, I don't want to sound too harsh. I mean, for me, a little noisy and scattered, but nothing offensively bad. I think it's a nice, warm song. Definitely a wedding song. I definitely agree with you there.
Yeah.
Has that vibe to it. Yep.
Fair.
Which brings us, I think, next to the next track, Mateo.
Yeah. We Are the Children of the World.
Yeah.
Rishabh, what were your thoughts on this?
Okay, so let me tell you, like, when I first saw the title of this track, I swear to God, I was just like not looking forward to listening to it because I felt it would be like the most hammy, like, how in the 80s they had a lot of these types of songs and a lot of
it was like We Are the World. I'm like, oh, is this like a kid's version of it? What's going on?
Yeah. And it definitely kind of was that, but I don't mind it. I think it was a super good-natured, happy song. It's almost like a kid's song. I think there's a children's choir at some point. Actually, towards the end, I think you can hear it very clearly. I think actually kids might like this song, honestly, which kind of makes sense because Diana Ross was on the Minions 2 album.
Was this the song on the Minions 2? Was this it?
No, this wasn't it. It was an original song she did. Turn Up the Sunshine if you want to hear it on your own time. You or any of our millions of listeners, who are really into the Minions 2 album. Which, by the way, complete sidetrack. Let me tell you about the Minions 2 album for a second.
Uh-huh.
You would be shocked, Mateo, the artists that they got on that thing. Like, I think, it was kind of a trending fact a while back when the movie came out. But I swear to God, they have people on that album that's just like crazy, because the movie was set during the 70s, so they've got interesting. Well, not to get too sidetracked, but they've got interesting people like Diana Ross.
Okay, maybe I need to give not just the album soundtrack album a listen, maybe the movie a watch. I haven't seen Minions 1. But
it's called.
It got me eager now, I guess.
I don't think the movie's good, but the album is interesting for sure.
Okay, but Rishabh, before I even dive into how I feel about the song, I want to know how you feel. Do you think it is hammy or not? Because I have I for sure know what I think about this song in that aspect.
Okay. No, I don't think it's hammy. It's sort of good-natured and optimistic. To me, it feels like a Wiggles song, and not just because there's a kids' choir and it's called "We Are the Children of the World." Not just for those two reasons. Those are two reasons for that argument, but just overall production, it kind of felt like it was like a. What can I say? Like a kids TV show song,
I guess,
but not in a bad way. Like, how sometimes people will say like the Wiggles music is kind of good. That's probably what I'd say about this.
I don't know if I've heard that, but I think that is honestly where maybe our ears differ. I thought this was super hammy. Pure cheese lyrics. I even wrote them down. The enemy we see is the enemy inside. Knowing we can win without knowing why, it's like lacking substance. I mean, I guess maybe it's for kids. It felt like a mediocre song. It literally was like, it's like a Captain Planet song. Like maybe this is a cartoon. So. It's definitely a cartoony song. Cool guitar right before the last two. Like right near the end, before the last two, like choruses where she sings like "We Are the Children." That was pretty cool guitar, but. Definitely cheese. I feel it's full of ham. I don't know if
you're making a ham and cheese sandwich this time.
I think so. I don't know how in touch I am with what kids like listening to, but I don't think this is what kids are listening to. I don't know. I think it's too hammy. This is too wiggles. Yeah,
that's exactly what I'm saying. Though it feels kind of like a Wiggles song. Yeah, whenever I remember Wiggles songs, this is what they felt like.
To me, that's bad. That's not a good thing to say about a song.
It's not good or bad. It's more on the side of bad for me as a listener. Obviously, like it's too sugary. I think that's the word for it. Like it's a little too sugary. I don't want to say hammy. I want to say it's too sugary. I don't know if that's a big difference in those two words, but it's kind of like a treacly vibe to it. Which I think is there throughout, but in some places it feels more, throughout the album. But obviously throughout the album it feels more sophisticated in some places. this was just kind of like, we were on Sesame Street with this one.
I think I can agree with what you mean by there's a difference between hammy and sugary. This definitely felt sugary. Yeah, I do think a lot of songs on this album though were very.
And it's called "We Are the Children of the World," and there's literally a children's choir in the song. So yeah, I just think children's programming for this one for some reason.
I don't know if you remember it enough. Was it just at the end? Because I only noticed that at the end. I was like, wait. Like right before the song ended, I was like, "Wait, are there kids singing on this song?"
I think it was towards the end. I noticed it more towards the end. Yeah, I was kind of like, I think there's like a children's choir in this song as well, which was kind of funny. But this is another one. It's like you could skip this. I think for sure.
Unless you're
I do want to say,
fan, skip it.
Yeah. In terms of like, that's where I was going to loop back for the interlude thing. When you think about a throwaway song, this is it. Like, I know this is the end of the album, but it's also like throwaway. Like Nobody Makes Me Crazy Like You Do is kind of actively bad. This is just like, why is this here?
Yeah. Honestly, yeah. It felt like she wanted it. She wanted a 10-track album, and she kind of just threw it on. Like it's not. Obviously, it's. I don't. Maybe it's the third worst on the album. I don't even know if I could say that.
Yeah, maybe.
To me, it's middle of the road, and it just seems like she wanted
definitely.
to fill up her album with another song, and she's like, someone will listen
You're
to
the
it.
children of the world, so let's add that in.
Yeah. But
right.
Last but maybe not least, 10th track, Forever Young. I guess I can give my thoughts.
Yeah, start us off.
Am I in church? Like, what's going on? I will say this: it is a cover. It's a Bob Dylan song. I guess I looked it up afterwards. I didn't know that.
Are you kidding me? This is a Bob Dylan cover.
Yeah.
Okay, let me tell you why I'm so shocked right now. Because first of all, I mean, I don't want to say anything too much because one day down the line I might pick a Bob Dylan album, but I cannot believe this is a Bob Dylan cover because these lyrics were like it was like daily affirmation song, and I feel like Bob Dylan's like lyrics have always been so advanced, and I cannot believe that. I'm just surprised.
Song, and like he's even credited to. I mean, I've written it. Maybe I got it wrong.
Okay,
I didn't see it. I'm almost certain he did though, and he's definitely the writer.
The lyrics were literally like, and I'm like not actually representing these like accurately, but they were like, "You are strong, stand up for what you believe in." Which is like, that's good, but like, it doesn't feel like a Bob Dylan song. I cannot believe that. That's an interesting piece of information. Sorry to derail your review, but
no, you're good. I mean, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with that. The lyrics. I'm gonna read verbatim some of this cheesiness, where it's, "May you build a ladder to the stars and climb every rung, and may you stay forever young." Okay. Thanks. I guess I will stay forever young. I guess. There was a singular part in this song though where Diana she sings it differently than how she says in other spots. Forever young, literally just the line "forever young," where it seemed like that had been used recently. I don't know if it was sampled or maybe it became like a popular sound off TikTok or something. I'm not sure though, but that part was that like singular line. I think it was used 2 or 3 times. Was good, but it seemed very familiar. I don't know if that rung any bells with you. But other than that...
Yeah. I lost interest, I think, in this song after one point. It was kind of a jazzy song at times, but like the lyrics and it just kind of was like, okay, the album's over and this is a closer. It's not a bad closer, but it's definitely not interesting at all for me.
Maybe the original song sounds better because I don't.
Yeah, I would think because
Diana Ross. I don't want to knock her too much, but it really felt like there was not much substance here. When all the instruments were thrown in and not vocals, great. But when it was just her vocals, this ain't it. Like, I'll be honest, I even got down like when it's the guitar shows up again. I was like, oh, I'm gonna cry. It's actually kind of beautiful, the guitar, but her vocals,
it's kind of a decent. it's a decent bookend to the album. Like it kind of captures the positivity throughout the album, but it's kind of overload. I'm telling you, I literally wrote daily affirmation song. I can see some people enjoying this. I'm still in shock that this was written by Bob Dylan. Although I guess Dylan had some songs that were like this, so not that surprised. But yeah, just for me, it was kind of whatever.
Well, I think that covers all the tracks, right, Rishabh? Should we just jump right into
that does cover all the tracks?
The album review. Yeah. Honestly, Rishabh, I think you should go first. I know this was my album pick. Yeah. But what did you think about this album? Because I think my stuff might surprise you. Maybe.
Yeah. No, I think, first of all, I think overall, what I can gauge from our discussion in this episode is just that I think we were mostly in agreement, right, in terms of where we felt about Diana Ross. I definitely get why she's kind of iconic. This is like super, like, we were talking about 80s grandfather album. I definitely think it falls into that. I think it captures that vibe aesthetic really, really well. I think it's definitely a product of its time. And I think for me, this album really works when Diana Ross is leaning into that. When she's going for that larger than life production, going for those disco synth sounds and taking it up to the next level. Now, this album is obviously hammy. I think when Diana Ross gets hammy right, it works really well. And when she gets it wrong, you get stuff like Forever Young and We Are the Children of the World and, some of those things. Yeah. And for me, special shout out to Telephone because I felt like that was the most unique one. But I think that's a one-off. Overall, I think it's a very 80s album. So for me, it's kind of something that I enjoyed, to be honest. I think I like the journey of it, and I definitely enjoyed discussing it because it is such a steeped in the 80s musical style that it's kind of fun to discuss and trace back all the influences. And I think it was kind of a heartwarming, energetic album. I would go back to it for a good uplift once in a while. A happy album, I would say. Okay. But quality-wise, mixed.
Rishabh, what would your rating be? Or should we save that out of 10?
Yeah, I think I would go maybe... I'd go 7. I'd go 7 out of 10. Whoa. I don't think that's too low or too high. I think that's middle of the road for me. I could go 6.5, but I think, I think I'm more on 7. 0.5. Yeah, I think I'm at 7. I'm at a 7, which is for me kind of mediocre to good. That's the way I would phrase it. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I think this might be a world's first Aux Fiends thing then when I get to my rating.
All right. Let's see it.
Dude, where do I even begin? This was my album pick, but I was so disappointed, if I'm being honest. Mm-hmm. This was a ham and cheese sandwich full of ham. Dude, it was so hammy. I mean, you really were right, though. It really does encapsulate the 80s fully. Yeah. Peak 80s.
Yes.
But in that encapsulation, it takes in a lot of the good and a lot of the bad.
Yeah.
Not that it's unlistenable. But that is it's just super, just like, okay, what is this? There's better 80s stuff. There's stuff that's
for sure.
Better. It's like, there was just a lot of like lack of substance, I really felt like. And that I was really looking for, that I was like, okay, I know Diana Ross. She's established and she's from, the Supreme. She has her own stuff even before this. This is her 15th studio album.
Yeah.
Like, I really, unless she was like going for something else, but it doesn't seem like it because this is what I think of when it's kind of peak 80s. Mm-hmm. It just like didn't fully work for me. Maybe it's because I have such an overindulgence of the 80s. Mm-hmm. And, obviously not being alive in the 80s, it's not like I'm there to hear all the stuff kind of going in before it can kind of settle. But this really feels like the stuff they would just be throwing in. And I can see why a lot of the songs you're not hearing today because it has not stood like the test of time. If I'm being honest, there's really only 2, maybe 3 songs that I would actually recommend, and they would literally just be like Missing You, Swept Away, and It's Your Move, obviously.
I want to ask you a question before you continue, Mateo, and just out of curiosity, what you think. like, you know how you're saying it hasn't stood the test of time. I mean, do you think, in your opinion, Diana Ross is even a household name today? Like, I feel she's always been a bit of a cult figure.
I think
or is that too crazy to say?
That's too crazy to say. I think Diana Ross is. If you were older than 22, I think she's a household name.
Okay.
I think people know who Diana Ross is.
Okay. I'm older than 22, but
if you're older than 30, I don't think a person older than 30 does not know who Diana Ross is. Okay, yeah, if you're like 5 or like 10, I mean, dude, Minions too, man. They had Diana
that's true.
Ross.
That's true. Yeah.
You know?
They got their dose of Diana Ross, yeah.
But like this episode isn't just about Diana Ross. It is, but
I'm already regretting saying that because now, like we've had a few episodes where I've said stuff about artists, and now all the fans of those artists are going to come in the comments.
They're going to come in the comments and they're going to rip you to shreds. All the Ross heads. I don't know if that's what Diana Ross fans are called. They are.
No, they're called her minions, Mateo. They're called her minions.
Her minions. That's right. All the minions are going to be after you, Rishabh. Now.
You know what? I think what's happened probably is after the Minions 2 soundtrack came out, you have a bunch of like new 10-year-old Diana Ross fans.
Yeah,
they're all going to come after me in the comments.
They're the real ones who are going to, make TikToks about you now.
They're going to be like, "How dare you speak up against the queen?"
Yeah, true. The Vaporwave Queen. I mean. Yes. I think she's multi-generational. Come on.
Okay. Yeah. You might be right.
I'm saying that, but I'm also saying that.
Now back to your album review. Yeah.
I don't think you need to listen to this album at all. I think there's good stuff, but even if you're a Diana Ross fan, I think you just go for the hits. I don't think you listen to this whole album at all. I mean. I'm in complete disagreement. I think Telephone is bad. It's the second worst song on here. Nobody Makes Me Crazy is the worst.
Yes, definitely.
A lot of the songs are just like, what's going on? It's too cheesy and they sound the same. That's why I'm like, listen to the hits.
Yeah, and honestly, listen to the first half. I think the first half is pretty good. That's the strong half. Like, from Missing You to Swept Away, if you want to be like me and enjoy Telephone, you can, but I think I can see why people might not enjoy Telephone. So for me, I would say, listen to the first 5 or 6 tracks. You kind of got the idea.
Yeah, honestly, if this was just an EP, I think I would really agree with you. If it's just the first half, my rating goes up by maybe 1-2 points. Honestly,
okay, yeah.
But my album rating, Rishabh, I gave it lower
than your own album.
My own album pick, 5 out of 10.
I think this is some Aux Fiends history right here.
This is Aux Fiends hit 5 out of 10, Rishabh.
5 is low. 5 is low. 5 is a little too low, Mateo.
I don't think it's too low, Rishabh. Well, to me, a 5 out of 10 is just an album.
Okay.
And honestly, I would maybe even rate it lower, but because of the really good hits, the really high with It's Your Move, keeps it at that average of, okay, it's just an album. But like if it didn't have that, if it didn't have Missing You, it didn't have Swept Away, it's worse. Like it's just campy. It's just too much cheese. It's way too hammy. It's and maybe I'm being too harsh on it. Like I said, where I have too much overindulgence of the 80s. So I only
it's kind of like the best parts kind of thing.
You can kind of only pick out the best parts, and you see what had stood the test of time. And you really, it's like one of those things when you're seeing like, when you're watching a movie, and you see the original, like where it had originally, like, that's where like
the Leo DiCaprio snapping point moment.
Yeah, it's like you see the original part of where it's always been used and where it kind of came from, but now that it's been perfected, it's better now. That's where it's really.
I agree.
This just seems to be kind of that foundation of the 80s, and you got too much of that bad in to really make it worth it. It's not all terrible, but it's definitely just an album at the end of the day. And so
another 80s album. Yeah.
It's just another 80s album, sad to say. And I definitely think that's the first time for either of us, for our own album, The other higher than the other.
Rated higher. Yeah, I think I'm okay at a 7, maybe a 6 if you really want to push me that direction. But I'm going to stick with 7 since that was my first reaction. So yeah. And I think 7 is lowish. I mean, I don't think that's a terribly great rating, but it's not bad either. I would say it was mediocre to good, as I said earlier.
I think that's kind of the best way to put it. It's kind of mediocre.
Yeah.
It has good songs, but it has a lot of bad. But it's not even. It's like, they have really bad songs, but most of the stuff, it's just kind of filler, and it sounds the same. Where it's just like, I know Diana Ross, and I know she's got better stuff. So that's just where the disappointment kind of lies, you know.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that is episode 11 of Aux Fiends, if I'm not wrong, Mateo.
Yeah, it is. Any last words before we get on to the little sneak peek of the next episode? The album
drop? I mean, I think we covered it for the album. I mean, I think it was a good experience coming back and doing this. I think we picked it was a kind of an interesting album to dissect. There was a lot to talk about, and I think it was a good experience. Yeah, just talking about this entire album in one go. I think I've definitely missed that from my end.
I for sure missed that as well. Honestly.
Yeah. Just the exercise of going through the entire album and breaking it down. Sorry, you were saying something.
No, I agree. I've missed it. It's not just about this album, but there's been plenty of times dude, I wish we were recording Aux Fiends. This music, I want to learn more about it, and I want to know your own thoughts on this music or this album as well. And it's hopefully, you know what? No way I'm going to give any promises of monthly, yearly, anything. But hopefully soon, again, we will have another episode.
Yeah, I think so.
The next episode, Rishabh. It is your turn. What is your turn. Album pick? Because I don't know what it is.
Well, Mateo, let me ask you this question. How often do you listen to the radio in your car or in your home? Do you listen to the radio hits? I know the answer, but I want our millions of listeners to know.
Never. I don't remember the last time I've listened to the radio. I think the only time was maybe when my phone Bluetooth was not working and I put it on and I immediately regretted it, and I had and there was just ads, and I'm like, oh, I don't even like this music, and so I immediately turned it off. And I rather would just listen and sit in silence than listen to the radio, if I'm being honest.
So you're not, let's safe to say you're not a top 50 individual, I would say.
Absolutely not. No, never listen to the radio.
Honestly, let me tell you about my next album in that case, because you know what? I'm not going to say we're going to talk about Mr. Justin Bieber or a Dua Lipa or a Jack Harlow, okay? I'm not going to subject you to that level of mainstream-esqueness.
Good.
But there is a brand new artist, okay? Brand new artist who has just joined the scene. And she's had already one pop single go viral. And it's been in the top, I want to say it's definitely in the top 50. It gets a lot of radio airplay. And her sound is pretty unique. And she's really young. I think she's 22 years old. And she's already kind of started making, waves. And I say waves because it's related to the song that went viral. In the pop industry. The name of the song, you might have heard it either on your TikTok reels or on the radio, is called Water. Have you heard it, Mateo?
Water. Is that the name of the album?
That's the name of the song.
No, Water. I do not know. I don't know what that is.
Water came out in 2023, and I'm reading the Wikipedia here. Entered top 10 in 16 countries, including the UK and the US. And after that, this artist released her first album, which is named after her own name. The album is called Tyla, Tyla. It was released on 22nd of March of 2024. All right. And this music, I'm going to tell you, I've been listening to it and it surprised me. Okay. She's been deemed the queen of Popiano, a fusion of the pop and amapiano genres. Okay. And it's basically this South African artist who's kind of taken American pop music by storm. So I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on it. I think it's a really contemporary and unique sound. So I think I'm looking forward to discussing it with you. Any initial thoughts, reactions?
I feel like I always say this, but now I'm really sweet. I don't know. Water. The album's called Tyla by Tyla.
Yes, Tyla by Tyla.
I have no idea. I mean, I think maybe I know one song called Water, but I don't think it's this. I don't. I have no idea. What kind of music is this? What's the genre?
It is pop music, but it's a mix of different genres. If you are familiar with like just overall Alma piano genres or South African music overall, there's a long, strong element of that in this in her music, which I think is really interesting and cool because she's kind of representing that side, which we don't get a whole lot of in American pop music. There's been a few instances where we do. But I think it's going to be really interesting. And I think whatever I've heard so far from the album has been really good. So looking forward to discussing that with you, Mateo.
I guess I am too. I know nothing about this. I'm super duped. I guess.
Let's go.
I guess let's do it for that. I don't want to spoil too much, but I don't know how excited I am for this. I'm That's like my kryptonite. New music, stuff I don't even know anything about. What Papiano, whatever you said.
Mama Piano.
Mama Piano, Mama Luigi. I don't know what's going on.
Amapiano. If you guys want to look it up, it's a subgenre of music. Definitely check it out. It's a hybrid of deep house, jazz, and lounge music. Hold on, Mateo. We're getting way too far ahead. We got to save this for the next episode. Come on.
Okay. Yeah, we'll save it, Rishabh. We will save it.
All right.
Thank you again, all listeners, for coming in, and thanks for waiting. Hopefully, we will have this next album, next Aux Fiends. Don't even be asking in the comments where the next Expressionist Discovery is, because I don't know either.
Yeah, we know how you guys leave millions of comments as our millions of listeners. So
we've lost sponsors, everything. Please, just be patient. Be patient, please.
Exactly. Blue Apron, you're out here.
Blue Apron and out.
Blue Apron and out. For legal reasons, this episode is not sponsored by Blue Apron.
Yeah.
Do not use code Craig for 30% off.
No code, no sponsor. More episodes will come.
All right. Thank you, Mateo. Thank you, Craig. We'll see you guys on the next one.